And so I love putting people together. I enjoy working through the puzzle. That's the fun part. I think that that's the thinking part of the law that I practice. And that's the fun part. Doing the contracts, it's a necessary evil, but it isn't that exciting.
Hello and welcome to the Attorney Post, where we give you the inside scoop with top attorneys in their field. And now, here's our host, Justin West.
All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Attorney Post, where we discuss what's going on in various facets of the law with attorneys at the top of their game to help you navigate the various ins and outs of the legal fields and jurisdictions. Because, as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Today, I am very pleased to be joined by attorney Marty Davis, who runs Legal Solutions Group down in Florida. Marty, how you doing, man?
Doing great.
Awesome. Marty has a great background, by the way. We were talking about it beforehand. It's a piece of Japanese art, but it was made in Europe, made in Western Europe or Eastern Europe. So it's a really beautiful piece. We're going to jump over really quickly and take a look at Marty's website. You can find him online at Legal Solutions GRP. That's short for group. LegalSolutionsGRP.com. As always, we will have a link in the description below. They seem to do just about everything from workers' comp to personal injury to business. Really a full service law firm and employment, labor law, etc. And we're going to talk to Marty about all that stuff today. So we're going to really dig into that. But we'll put, as always, down below his contact information, his website, and everything else. So if you have a question and you want to talk with him, that's how you reach out to him. Before we get started, as always, we are going to read from our sponsors. And our first sponsor today is Habanero Social. What if Google could send your business or your law firm free clients every single month? With Habanero Social, it's not just a fantasy, it's a reality. Their AI-powered platform optimizes your Google business profile to attract more local customers effortlessly. From cranking out high-quality content to managing reviews and fine-tuning your local SEO, Habanero Social handles it all while you sit back and watch your business grow. 85% of local search happens in the Google Maps pack, the place you need to be in order to capture those clients. An optimized Google business profile doesn't just show up, it engages, it builds trust, it increases clicks, and ultimately boosts your business. And they're so confident that right now they're offering a 3 times ROI guarantee, meaning they will guarantee that you'll make more than you spend with them by 3 times, or you'll get your money back, or they'll make it right. Stop wasting time with old school tactics. Visit habanerosocial.com today and let the AI do the heavy lifting for you. That's habanerosocial.com. And our second website is Andropology, which is a newer one as well. Gentlemen, if you're looking to take charge of your health and feel your best, listen up. Whether it's managing type 2 diabetes, boosting testosterone levels later in life, or just wanting to increase your overall longevity and vitality, Andropology.com has got you covered. They dive deep into natural solutions from superfoods like spirulina and tart cherry extract to targeted fitness routines like high-intensity interval training that can help you reclaim your energy and vitality. At Andropology, it's all about practical, science-based advice tailored specifically for men who want to improve their health without all of the fluff. You can think of it as your go-to guide for navigating the complexities of men's health. Simplified. From diet tips to supplement recommendations, they have everything you need to start making positive changes today. Visit Andropology.com and explore the latest insights on living healthier and a more vibrant life. That's Andropology.com, where better health begins. And I am hoping I am sharing the correct screen here because all of a sudden I'm not seeing the little zoom bar, but that's okay. I can always fix that and post if I'm not. Well, I am again joined with attorney Marty Davis. So, Marty, how's it going?
It's going well.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Marty is an experienced attorney. He has over 30 years of practice. He leads Legal Solutions Group, PL, where his expertise spans workers' compensation defense, business law, real estate, risk management, consulting, etc. His firm's team consists of experienced lawyers and former C-suite executives offering a full range of services to businesses and individuals. Marty has extensive personal experience in PI law, personal injury, insurance defense, premise liability, and workers' compensation, often representing corporations and municipalities. He's also deeply committed to community involvement, serving on boards such as the Rosalind R. Ludwig Children's Foundation and the Women's Fund of Miami-Dade. Marty's firm specializes in providing legal counsel to middle market companies and startups, offering services in restructuring, financing, and business operations. Outside of work, he enjoys traveling, boating, and mentoring young entrepreneurs. That was kind of a mouthful to say, and I'm sure it was barely enough to cover anything. So my first question to you, Marty, as always, is what did I miss?
Well, one of the things that you missed is that being in South Florida, real estate plays a key function in every business and, quite frankly, in everyone's personal life. We at Legal Solutions are handle all types of real estate, whether it's residential, commercial, development, and protecting the asset, and also making certain that the buyer is protected in getting good title and not being involved in some of the schemes that happen in South Florida.
That's a good thing. I saw you like to travel, you like boating. I had to laugh because as I said that on your homepage, the comment, I mentioned this when we were talking earlier, but there's a wonderful picture it just left. We'll come back in a minute of a giant cruise ship tipped over. I'm assuming that wasn't your boating, right?
It wasn't my boating ability, no. It kind of shows that what happens when the C-suite isn't doing all the things that they should do, and that the captain of the ship kind of made some mistakes. That was an Italian cruise line, and they went the wrong direction because supposedly the captain was waving at a girlfriend on the shore.
I said this beforehand, but I found it a very arresting image. It keeps catching my eye every time I look over. I'm like, man, it's a clear, big, beautiful image. I appreciate good web design. I appreciate good artistic direction. And every time I look at that, I'm like, man, it just catches the eye. It's such a unique shot of something you don't normally see. So I like your website. For those of you that want to check it out, again, that is legalsolutionsgrp.com. Link, as always, down below in the description. Well, Marty, obviously we have a little bit of an idea of what you do. I have done some research. We just showed your site. But if I didn't know who you were, I didn't know anything about you, and we had 30 seconds, a minute in an elevator, and I said, Marty, what do you do? Give me your pitch for your firm. Who do you really help? Why do they choose to work with Legal Solutions Group? What sets you apart from everyone else?
Well, for the past nearly 40 years now, I've represented individuals and businesses, whether they're professionals, manufacturers, service providers, and protected their business, helped their businesses grow, and diversify businesses, whether it's adding real estate to the plan, adding other businesses, expanding their business. And I've spent a lot of time in my life being involved with chambers of commerce and in a number of other business settings, as my father did, to expand what we do and how we do it. So that's what sets me apart. I have a big business background, not just a background in law.
Gotcha. So that begs the question, what got you into law? Was law your original just goal? Like you always knew? Did you grow up watching Perry Mason, reruns or whatnot, or did you kind of start business and then realize you had an aptitude for law? What led you into law, and then what led you into doing the type of law that you do today?
I think I was brought up by a very entrepreneurial father who never had much education, was extremely successful, and from the time I was in elementary school, had been telling me he wished he'd gone to law school. He wished he'd gone to law school. So it kind of was just a natural progression. I never considered anything else, and it's been a great career and opened many doors for me in business and socially and in travel and all the things that I enjoy doing.
Gotcha. Now you're down in Florida. Have you always practiced in Florida, and do you practice in any other states?
No, I just practice in Florida, but I practice throughout Florida. One of my largest clients has me handling all of their workers' compensation settlements in the state of Florida. So I'm all over the state basically.
Gotcha, man. International and intrastate man of mystery.
There you go.
Traveling all around. So down in Florida, one thing I'm actually curious to ask you about, I didn't go over this in the pre-roll, and I've talked to a few different attorneys and they had very different experiences in Florida with this. I know that obviously about 5 years ago, the whole world went through a pandemic, and you can feel the way you want about the pandemic. But one thing I noted that was really interesting is here in the States, obviously, every single state handled it differently. And I've heard a lot of good things about the way that Governor DeSantis, handled the pandemic. But what was your experience of going through the pandemic down there in Florida, specifically where you were or where your clients were? Were there any unique challenges that posed? Did it shift your business in any like really amazing ways? Are you now mostly virtual? How was your experience of the pandemic down there?
Quite frankly, aside from all of the tragedy that happened during the pandemic, I think from a business perspective, it made people far more efficient.
Mhm.
We started using Zoom that we never used before. The court system went virtual for most things and has continued that, especially in the employment area. And businesses have appreciated the fact that employees like to work from home, like to have the flexibility. They also look at the cost savings in not having brick and mortar.
Yeah.
It's huge. I talk about the difference in my firm where we had 5 offices and throughout the state of Florida, and now we have one, and it's cost the same amount as what my phone bill used to be to run my office. So it's a huge change. And quite frankly, Florida, we had it easier than New York and places like that where people were stuck in their apartments without any way of getting out and in bad weather and all. But we had a great, an easier time than I think most places during the pandemic to answer your question. But I think it made us all far more efficient and far more appreciative of how we could do things in a different way and still get things done.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One of the things I really liked was, again, everyone started Zooming. I used to do this podcast is over a decade old, but we used to conduct it via Google Hangouts, which was the simplest solution for doing video conferencing with people. But nobody knew what Google Hangouts was. It was a really clunky interface, and I always had to like walk people through it. And then one time we lost our whole channel due to a duplicate content issue, and I just kind of gave up on it. And then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden everyone was Zooming. I'm like, all right, everyone, they already know what Zoom is. I don't have to talk them into downloading this new software, and they're happy to use it. So that's actually why we rebooted the podcast, was specifically because of the pandemic. I'm curious about something else though, and I've talked to a few people about this. As they've moved away from having a centralized office and having a lot of people working more remotely, do you find it difficult to maintain kind of a unified corporate culture, if that makes sense? Like when you're hanging out at the water cooler and you're all working for Legal Solutions Group and you're talking about this case and that case and everything else, when people get scattered a little bit more, they don't come in as much. Do you find that it hampers people's ability to really identify being a member of the group? And do you think it also has a negative effect potentially on like mentorship opportunities for maybe new lawyers coming in who need help with a case or something like that? Or do you think that it's all pretty zoomable and totally fine?
Well, I think it's a positive and a negative. We have regular team meetings by Zoom where we talk about the cases we're working on. We talk about the clients that we're all working on. We talk about new ideas, different ideas. So we still maintain that camaraderie that we have, but it also gives us the opportunity to spend more time outside of just our law practice. So many of our team get together because they enjoy boating or they enjoy going out to eat. They enjoy, so that we are adding that to that building of camaraderie, so that we're doing something that people think is fun as well as getting to know each other. The other part about it is that by the use of Zoom, Teams meetings, how whatever
All the
facility
different
you
platforms.
use, yes, all of the ways of things. Um, it broadens your ability. It broadens our ability to serve our client. It
Hmm.
broadens our ability to bring expertise to our clients. It broadens the learning possibilities for young lawyers, for staff, legal assistants, paralegals, where there is so much out there available to learn through Zoom and podcasts and things such as yours. I think it adds so much more, and we are, I think, better for it.
So you would lean towards it was a net benefit overall moving in this more virtual environment, more positive than negative, even if there's a little bit of both.
There is a little bit of both, certainly. I certainly enjoy the networking
Yeah.
live with people and all that. That's fun and enjoyable, and I spend a lot of time doing that. But yeah, I think it's a net gain.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like a reasonable way to frame it. So let me ask you a little bit more about your practice. And you've been practicing, you said, for almost 40 years. I'm not going to tell you that I'm just a little over 40 myself. 45 this year.
There you go.
Um,
I was in the delivery room next door. Yeah.
there you go. Um, and I'm sure that in your experience of practicing law, Marty, you've probably had some great wins, but also some setbacks and some losses. And one of my favorite questions to ask my attorney guests is just to tell my listeners about one of the times in your experience, your practice of law, where you experienced a failure, right? And it could be a major failure, minor failure. You just totally forgot to fill out the paperwork the right way, whatever it was. But what did you learn from that, and how do you carry that forward to make sure you're always giving the best care to your clients?
Well, my biggest failure was my first partnership. When we decided to part ways or that it was no longer working, we clearly acted like children and protecting our files. And we ended up having security guards in the office and spent a bunch of money on lawyers, suing back and forth. Where if we really would have taken the time, number one, set up our business correctly. Number two, did the correct paperwork correctly. Number three, really looked at what it's going to cost to fight versus what it's going to cost to resolve the situation. And number five, I guess, is that if we would have sat down and talked it through in a reasonable basis, we would have saved a lot of headache. We would have saved a lot of trauma to each of us. And that's what I bring forward to my clients now. And quite frankly, my first partner and I are friends, and we laugh about it now. And because it's something that you learned in long before your time. We call it romper room, but it was where children play and learn.
Yeah.
And so it was a great learning experience. It was a costly learning experience, but it's been one that I could bring to my clients and also my own practice. So it was great learning experience.
It makes perfect sense. And I mean, it nobody wants to be the cautionary tale, but it's always very useful to, hey, listen, I've been through this. I know how you're feeling. And to really kind of Sherpa people through it, if you will, to guide them through
Sure.
it. So the flip side of that coin, of course, Marty, is I'm sure you got them some things that you've done that you are just very proud of. Maybe you're falling asleep at night and right before you doze off, you think back to, wow, I just can't believe that worked out so great, or I can't believe everything, happened this way. What are some of the biggest successes in your career? The things that you're most proud of, the proverbial feathers in the cap, so to speak.
I'm very proud of the fact that I served on the board of Stetson University, where I was a student for undergraduate and then became their alumni president and then joined their board. I think that the school progressed and grew during that period of time, not because of just me, but I was part of that movement and very proud of that. Uh, I love the fact that I can work with young entrepreneurs in helping them form their business, watch it grow. And it's happened time and time again where someone will come to me. I had an exterminator uh, uh, company that was just starting. He was renting a truck. We worked and I was kind of his outsourced general counsel. And today he has a fleet of vehicles and is doing pest control work throughout the state of Florida. So those kinds of things are fun for me. And also when I talk to young lawyers who used to work for our firm and have gone out on their own or gone to other places, and they come back to you and say, man, we really got great training with you. We really appreciate it. It really feels good. So I like putting people together. I like to bring them along. And I like to watch them succeed.
Hmm, that's awesome. Now you work with big companies, you work with little companies, you work with mid-sized companies. It sounds like is maybe your forte. What's the difference in your legal approach between working with a really large company, working with a mom and pop place? Is one of them, and it maybe it's counterintuitive, is one of them more work or less work? Is there one that you prefer to work with because you see the difference in a unique way? Tell me about that.
Quite frankly, and Justin, each of them are a little different. Uh, the startups are usually folks that are they have a great idea. They are excited about what they're going to do, but they just don't know how to make it all happen. And so you can kind of be a mentor for them on setting up the operation and how to protect them where they're running with whatever it is, if it's a new app, if it's a new service or a different service or a product. So that's kind of fun. There's a lot of hand holding, and there is a lot of, listen, I'm telling you this because, you know, I don't want you to touch the stove to learn that it's going to burn your finger. I'm here to tell you it's hot, don't touch it. And let me save you that medical bill. The middle-sized company are usually the ones that want to grow. They're excited about what their product is. Either they want to expand into a new area, they want to expand into a new location, or they want to take on a different product or new partners or employees. So it's a different kind of thing on looking at how their operation runs and what's the best way of working through that. And once again, looking at risk management. The large companies are sometimes the easiest and the most difficult. They spend a lot of time in meetings and they have meetings about their meetings, and there's a political culture there that you need to work within, which is how the company runs. And you need to follow how that works for them and give them the guidance or the information that they need. And it's a whole different thing about making certain that you're politically correct in how you handle things. But they're also have the resources to do some really fun things and to really expand and look at something in a different way. And it's why I have this team basically of C-suite former executives that I call upon to bring in that expertise for me because I've never been in a Fortune 500 company working on it. I've been hired by them, but it's their expertise that will help, and it also makes the client more comfortable. So it's a team approach, and each one has their pluses and minuses.
Gotcha. In your experience, is there, I don't know, is there, are there common pitfalls that different categories of business fall into, like an early startup or a small business, mom and pop? Are they going to fall into a certain set of very common issues that a larger company just isn't going to have? And are there common pitfalls that the larger companies often find themselves falling into as well?
Well, small companies tend to have financial problems. They don't have enough capital. They think they can, but most of the time they just don't have enough and can't run themselves and are hoping to get the money to pay themselves big salaries from day one and move forward on their new product. And usually that isn't realistic. And so they need to bring on some other ideas on how to compensate themselves, compensate others. And also it may be those initial business concerns that they haven't really thought of because usually they're very creative and enthusiastic, but haven't really decided on, don't know the difference between different entities, how to protect themselves tax wise, how to protect themselves liability wise. The big companies, they're all looking for, their problems are usually inefficiency. And they've got too many people doing similar jobs, or I work for a municipality that the various departments had to use up all of their allotted dollars to then get budgeted that much again next year or to get more. So they may be doing things that aren't terribly efficient so they can use up that money so they make sure they got more money instead of, gee, let's make this more efficient. We can do more, we can provide more, and then seek it that way. So it all depends on the culture on a bigger organization.
Sure. That's fascinating because that is, uh, without going into politics itself, obviously, this current administration has their organization that is dedicated to government efficiency. And this is one of those truisms that you always hear that in any, whether it's a government organization or a business, oftentimes you have to spend what you're allocated for it. And if you don't spend it, they take it back. And so you're incentivized to spend more than you need and to waste money. I'm curious, what is the solution to that? Or is there a solution other than I don't even know how you'd solve that, but it seems to be a commonly understood perennial issue.
Yeah, it clearly is an issue, and it's a top-down issue, in my mind, that management has to be looking for more efficiency to make the rank and file look for efficiency and reward efficiency, as opposed to you've got your pot of money. How do you spend it? I use a series of consultants sometimes to come in and do quality management and look at data and bring those folks to the table to help my clients understand how perhaps it may be as simple as moving the coffee machine closer to the people that drink the coffee as opposed to having it on the other side of the building. And it could be as complicated as, you have redundancy in different departments that could all be reduced into one and make that a separate department. But all of those things are data driven, and you need those people that look at the data to really make it clear to management how they make those improvements. And it's so much easier from the outside looking in because management's there, and sometimes they just don't see things that might be obvious to an outside consultant or a law firm.
Gotcha. The You gave a couple of examples there, and that reminds me of another question I always like to ask. You mentioned, sometimes you can solve it as simple as moving the coffee pot or whatever, which strikes me as almost absurd, right? That something like that could cause a company almost to come to a grinding halt potentially, but it could if it causes the wrong kind of friction, if it causes tempers to flare, it could definitely make it so that people just can't function together. What's one of the most absurd moments that you've encountered, or if you have a couple that really just jump out in your practice of law that you've encountered, just the moments that make you shake your head and you think, how did this shape out this way? Why did this shape out this way? Um, Go for it.
My favorite story is when I got out of law school, or last year of law school, I went to work for a medical malpractice defense firm. So we were defending doctors in malpractice cases. In the 80s in South Florida, it was a real financial crisis because there were huge judgments against physicians, especially obstetricians, neurosurgeons, and things like that. So doctors were trying to protect themselves, moving assets around and all. And um, we've had more than one physician groups that have moved the assets into their spouse's name
Hmm.
and thought that that would protect them from the problems. Unfortunately, the physician then had all of these young staff working around them, and unfortunately, they got involved with one of their staff members on a romantic level. And of course, divorce causes a lot of problems when everything's in the spouse's name.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things that, you really could have done a much better job in risk management than put everything in your spouse's name. And, that goes without saying about what was happening in the office. And it clearly happens today. It probably was far worse 25 years ago than it is now, and people are a little more sophisticated. But still, those things happen, and they think, gee, we've got this all under control, no problem. I'm bulletproof. You're not.
How has the legal landscape, sorry, brain is not wording good today. How has the legal landscape changed over the last 40 years? I mean, you have clearly been practicing law long enough that you really saw the implementation of the internet, right, as a thing. It was really only about 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, that it really became prominent on the scene. What what trends have changed over the last 30, 35 years from where you began, your practice law to today, from social media to websites to just and it may be things that aren't internet related as well, but what are the biggest things that have really shifted that you've seen change over the years?
Well, I think that, the running of a law firm has really changed. We used to have very large libraries where we had books, where we did all of our research on looking in a book to see what case law was. Updates came out monthly that had to be placed into those legal books. We'd go into a library. You had to have maybe multiple copies depending on the size of your firm. So we may have three libraries going. Now all of that is computer based.
Yeah.
The next step has been it's not just that's computer based. Now we have search tools that, it makes it so much easier to do research. And quite frankly, some of the problems that have been created is people do a Google search and they think they've found the legal answer, or they've gone on to AI and gotten a contract that they feel is perfect because AI said it was fine or Google said it was fine. And quite frankly, Google isn't the replacement for 40 years of experience in what's happened outside of the wording of a document. But when I started, we used typewriters that would remember one page of a document. And if you made a mistake on that document, you had to pull the paper out and put it all back together again. So, far more efficient. We are far more immediate in responses. We can do things much quicker. You used to wait for a letter. Now, you're upset if someone hasn't responded to your text within the hour. So things happen much quicker, which means good things happen quicker and mistakes happen quicker. There's a whole different problem about when someone sends a text, what did it really mean? Did they get the expression of the person that was typing that text? Or did it mean something completely different? And is your response appropriate? So it's created things that work much faster, but what we are seeing is that it creates its own set of challenges because people may say more than they should, or they react more hostilely than they should. And maybe that wasn't really the intent of the message that they received. And I also find that business owners are far more concerned about, well, I have to have this done by 5 o'clock today. It's important. It has to be done now. It has to be done, and maybe taking a step back and thinking about something before you do something and make an immediate action is still has some value. And but it's a little different world in practicing law, but I find that the fundamentals in business are very, very similar. And we all have to work on relationships, no matter how those relationships are formed, whether they're in person, on Google, or on some other method. So it's an interesting world. The medium has changed, but doing business with people that you trust and protecting yourself from people that you don't trust has worked the same since when I first started practicing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. They said last year ChatGPT 5 had passed the bar with a like 90% score. As an attorney, what do you think about that? Is that the type of thing you're like, well, I mean, it's answering perfunctory data, but it's not going to be able to reason through the case. It's just going to be able to find you the correct citation? Or what does that even mean? To somebody that's never taken the bar exam, what does it mean to hear that ChatGPT passed it with a 95% rate or whatever it was?
Well, again, it's a lot about memorization. It's a lot about putting data and regurgitating data. But I do think that there is always going to be a place for looking at data, analyzing data, and coming to a reasonable resolution of things, because the law is all about looking at a couple different points of view and coming to some consensus, whether it's selling a product for the price that you want with the various properties that a widget has, or if it's a service, and does this service need to be done now? Does it need to be done in 2 weeks? And are you willing to pay for something that needs to be having it done by tomorrow, or is it more reasonable to wait till next week? So there's all kinds of factors that I think go into it, and I'm no scientist and I am no AI expert on what could happen and what they can come up with, but I'm fairly confident that I'd certainly want to have a team of people who knew what they were doing on my side, as opposed to saying, here's my chat AI, and we can just go forward with this, and I don't need any expertise than what Google will tell me. I think lots of people have seen, and we see it on Instagram, we see it on TikTok, we see, all of these people that say they're experts, and really they're no more expert than, my next door neighbor who's decided that he has an opinion on whether, the paint on the outside of this condo building is going to last another year or not. So, there's a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and sometimes they're just that, and they're not based on fact or information. So I think we always have to be careful of that.
No, I would agree with that 100%. There's a I'm trying to think what it's called. There's a it's not even a logical fallacy. It's something like the Dunning-Kruger syndrome, but there's a name for it where when you read the news, if it's an area you're an expert in, you call out all of the problems with that particular news story. You're like, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, they totally did this. But then when you do to anything else, doesn't matter if it's sports or opinion or weather or whatever, if it's an area that's outside of your wheelhouse, you just like, oh, it's the news, it must be right. And I think it's interesting because I think people are very quickly adapting that same level of implicit trust to ChatGPT, where you ask it, or whatever AI it happens to be, you ask it a question and it'll give you a great sounding answer 85, 90% of the time, and then it just starts to hallucinate randomly. Like it just can't actually think. I was watching something the other day and somebody made this point. My listeners, for everyone, I'll tell the story really quickly, but if you ask any of those AI programs that can make you images, ask it to make a wine glass filled all the way to the brim with wine so that like the wine is like right at the top, and it'll tell you that it's done it. It'll give you 15 different versions saying here's your image, that's what you want, and it never ever can fill it up more than halfway because it's just based on what it's experienced, and nobody's putting out content online of the wine glasses filled to the top. So I mean, this is just one of many examples where it just starts to hallucinate and doesn't it's not able to do the thing it thinks it's able to do. And I've played with this a few times, and I'll ask something like the Twitter version is called Grok, and I'll ask Grok to make me an image, and sometimes it makes a wonderful image, and it's like that's exactly what I wanted. Great job. And then sometimes it'll tell me I don't make images. I'm just an AI, large language model predictive thing. If you want an image, I can give you a prompt to generate the image, but I can't generate images. I'm like, you just like look up ahead in our conversation. You've already generated images, and it doesn't know. So I'm really curious if coming down the pipeline, there's going to be a whole aspect of law that's all about AI hallucinations. You mentioned, people going to ChatGPT and generating a terms of service agreement or something like that, and thinking that was good enough. I'm curious if that's going to be a whole burgeoning realm of law, AI interface law or something like that. Is that coming our way in 5 years or less?
It's probably here now, and will be. It's that same story. The barber who fixed $5 haircuts. It's the same story because we haven't come up with something that we are totally comfortable in, and all you have to do is watch these self-driving cars that have an accident, or it's veered off, or it did something, or it stopped, or God forbid the battery died. So all of those things require maintenance. I just had my computerized engine on my virtually new boat has said I need service. And so I called the dealer and it said my engine needs service. And I said, so what does that mean? It seems like the engine is new and all of that. And he said, well, there's been a glitch. It comes up and says that you need service and you really don't need service. And I said, well, how much would this service have cost if I would have just gone in and not talked to you about it? And he said, well, it's $800 an engine. Well, if you want to listen to your engine tell you in its chat that it needs service, I would have spent $800 for nothing. So, you can go merrily on its way, and it's kind of like watching a legal show, and they have a trial scene. Well, if they did trial scenes on television or some streaming source the way they really are, people would be falling asleep. It's not that interesting. Nobody gets up and says, yes, I did it in the back of the
Objection, Your
courtroom.
Honor.
Yes, it's just not that exciting. And it just doesn't work that way. But, it's out there. And if you look on internet sources, you're going to think, you've got it made. But quite frankly, hopefully, there's a greater intelligence that will say, you know, think twice on this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Have you ever seen you mentioned typos as well, and I'm the type of guy that I talk to text, whatever that's called all the time. I can't text to save my life. I'm just past that generation. Like well, I can, but I hate doing it. It just feels slow and complicated. But I'm very uncritical when I talk to text. I don't like proofread everything. In fact, my wife and I have a running gag between us because one of our kids, his name is Kepha, Kepha. It's Aramaic, and the phone has no idea what that word is, and I can't teach it his name. So whenever we say his name, like, hey, you need to take K for the Boy Scouts, whatever, it will give us the weirdest spellings like kefir, like the drink, fermented milk, or capo, which is like a musical instrument for the neck of a guitar or whatever. It gives us all sorts of funny things. But I'm curious how often people have found themselves in a legal issue just based on a typo. Is that something that happens, or is that something where you're like, well, this is clearly a typo. You can see what this was going for. Do people argue for the typo?
Absolutely, they can argue for the typo. And quite frankly, in a written contract, a typo or the misplaced word or the missing word or the added word or an added comma, quite frankly, can make a huge difference in the meaning and the enforceability of a contract. So I think everyone just needs to look at a text that you have dictated, that talk to text. I use dictation, gives you an idea how old I am, but it's it comes across clearly different than what you meant and creates, certainly has created arguments at home for me on a text I've sent, and it comes back and says, what the heck were you saying? I can't believe you'd say that to me. And, and I'm looking, ooh, that isn't what I meant. And so, yeah, it happens. But, in contracts, it's very serious. You've got to be careful on that. So a
Yeah.
comma can hugely make a difference.
That's fascinating. It is something we see. I mean, you hear, for instance, people go into constitutional law and they'll argue about this amendment or that amendment or whatnot. And like, well, there's a comma right here, and that comma means that this is part of this phrase, not this phrase. And it really is fascinating to see that. I don't know if I have the mental bandwidth to parse that data on a regular basis, but I do find it kind of fascinating when people dive into it. And of course, hopefully the worst argument at home is like, I thought you said you did want Italian food. Like,
That's right.
no.
Yes.
No, anything but Italian. I wanted Chinese or whatever it happens to be. Well, Marty, how do you balance your professional commitments with your personal interests and the things that you're involved in? Like, do you have downtime? What does the downtime for Marty Davis look like?
The downtime for me is kind of a combination of the things I love to do, but quite frankly, the things I love to do also brings me business. So I love boating. We go out on the boat probably at least once a week. We are forever taking out friends on the boat or maybe business associates that I want to get to know a little better, or people that we do know and then end up with legal problems or are selling real estate. And they say, oh gosh, Marty, we need a real estate lawyer. We didn't realize you did that. And so boating has been a great mix for me on something that I love to do because I get on my boat and I'm on instant vacation. So it's a great relaxation for me. I love to travel. I love cruises. I meet all kinds of really interesting people on cruises. And whether we make new friendships, whether it's you're learning something, whether it turns into, a business relationship, it's all great. I met the former president of McKesson Drug on a cruise in Europe, and he now does outsourced consulting work for me on sales for very large companies. Uh, and it's a great thing. And then that doesn't mention food, which I love and probably love a little too much. And but it's great. And we spend a lot of time having dinner with friends or going to their house or them coming to ours. And it's a lot of fun. And so it's downtime, it's learning time, and it's time where it may be a new client.
No, it makes sense. So that's downtime. What's uptime? What is What's your favorite aspect of what you do? Do you like doing high stakes litigation? Do you like doing contract review? Like what if you could do one of those things or one of the things that's in your wheelhouse, what would you love to focus on, or what aspects really jazz you up?
I think that the best part of what I do is seeing a puzzle and trying to come to a solution or a resolution of a concern that someone has, whether it's buying something, selling something, a problem with a product, a problem with a client, a problem with being paid. Uh, how to do that, and it's for me, it's putting my client or friend or acquaintance with someone who can fix the problem if I can't, or bringing to the table some bit of expertise that I clearly don't have, but that this business friend or uh, acquaintance needs. And so I love putting people together. I enjoy working through the puzzle. That's the fun part. I think that that's the thinking part of the law that I practice. And that's the fun part. Doing the contracts, it's a necessary evil, but it isn't that exciting. And there are wonderful lawyers that absolutely love just drafting contracts. And there's several of them that work for me, and they do a really great job. I hopefully bring to the table the solutions to put in the contract that helps the client.
Makes sense. You're basically the legal slash business equivalent of a matchmaker.
There you go.
Matchmaker,
Yes, that's
matchmaker,
right.
make me
Yes,
a
I
match.
put a scarf over my head and could do that, sing that song. Yes. But it's fun. And the really wonderful thing of all of that is that I've been doing it for 30 some years. And you become known for that and you're sought out because, hey, Marty will know that. Of my best friend, we have a river walk here in Fort Lauderdale, and they sold bricks to do improvements along the river as a fundraiser. And one of my friends bought a brick for me, and it says, Marty Davis, my oldest friend, he knows stuff. And so it's great. And it's what happens, with age and doing what you do for as long as you do, that and hopefully we remember the important things.
That makes sense. We have a river walk here too. I live in Atchison, Kansas, which if Kansas is a big rectangle with a bite out of the corner, I live right there on that bite. But I don't think our river walk is probably nearly as nice as yours. We're 7 square miles and 10,000 people, so
Ah,
it's pretty bare bones. But Lewis and Clark were here, so we've
same
got that
thing.
going for us.
That's good.
And their dog, his name was Seaman, little dog. So this is all over this town. That and Amelia Earhart, everyone knows us for that as well. She was born here in Ashton, Kansas. In fact, my son, aforementioned, Kefa, just completed his Eagle Scout project. So I'll give him a shout out on my show because it's my show and I can do it if I want to. But he actually erected a flagpole, like a 25-foot commercial flagpole right in front of the Amelia Earhart Birthplace Museum. So if anyone happens to visit beautiful, scenic Atchison, Kansas, home of the Atchison, Topeka, Santa Fe Railroad and whatnot, also one of the most haunted towns in America, purportedly, at least that's what the sales literature would have you believe, go take a look and you can know that my son put that there. So
Put the flagpole up. Oh, very good.
well, Marty, I don't want to take up your whole day, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me and my listeners here. Here in a minute, I'm probably going to ask you my closing questions, and I'll give those to you right now so you can percolate on 'em. Question number one is just simply if we were to go back in time and meet young Marty, what advice would you give yourself and why, other than the obvious, which we all know is buy a lot of Bitcoin and hold it until it crosses 100K. Trust me, it's going to get there, right? But outside of that, what advice would you give yourself and why? And then number two is if I gave you my pen, and this is a magic pen, and it can strike out laws that are on the books, edit laws on the books, or add new laws to the book, and I were to let you use it to make one change, what change would you make and why? While you're percolating on that, we're going to jump back over, if my Zoom will cooperate here, and we're going to take another look at your website. So, as a reminder for everyone listening, I am talking to Marty Davis. Marty is the brains behind Legal Solutions Group. You can visit them online at legalsolutionsgrp.com. That's legalsolutionsgrp.com. GRP, of course, being short for group. We will, as always, have a link in the description down below. Before we jump back for the question, I will read from our final sponsor. and that is rank with news. Is not being featured in the news regularly costing your firm or your business credibility and visibility? Do you feel that getting found in Google search is more about dumb luck than science? Rank with News is the guaranteed solution to this fix. If there was a guaranteed way to get your firm or business featured in major national publications like Yahoo News, Bloomberg, Forbes, Reuters, AP News, etc., and seeing those articles rank sometimes in a matter of a few hours nationally for major competitive keywords that people were actually searching for, what else would you need to know? Rank with News is simply the most powerful way to hit page one of Google safely in under 2 weeks, organically and permanently. It's like guaranteed SEO or search engine optimization on steroids, ranking quickly and sticking long term. If you're tired of poor visibility for your business, visit rankwith.news to learn more and book a time to speak with a specialist about featuring your firm or your business in major national 8-figure traffic sites that can launch you to page one in a matter of hours and help you dominate the local marketplace. Get media exposure, rank higher in Google, build credibility, and win more customers and clients with rankwith.news. All right, so Marty, we travel back in time and we don't break the space-time continuum somehow. All of the universe continues to persist. And you see young Marty, and you're able to go run over and just give yourself maybe a sentence or two of advice before we get sucked back through time. What advice would you give yourself?
I think you froze. I don't know if you want me to continue answering this or
Lose you?
not. Uh, my advice would be that I would want Marty to divide his life into three parts. One, work in your business. The other third was work on your business. And the third was to make certain that you have plenty of time to do all of the things that you really enjoy doing and take the time to do that. Because life is short and you never know how long you're going to be here.
That's good advice. That's just good life advice. That's good advice for anyone. I think my internet putzed out for the very beginning of it, but I got the dividing your life into thirds and 100%. And it should be in the recording. I record this in the cloud as well as on my hard drive, so we should be fine.
Great.
I actually lost about a dozen or so interviews, and I just found them about a month ago. They were on an old computer because I used to just record everything on my site, and my computer died, and I thought I got everything off of it, but apparently I didn't. So I actually am in the process of doing the lost season of the Attorney Post from like 4 years ago, which makes me feel terrible because these are ours will get out a lot faster because it's recording the cloud as well. So anyway,
Saving grace, yes.
so hopefully I didn't come in awkwardly while you were talking and be like, "Are you hearing me? Can you hear me?" Because you looked frozen on my end, but I think that was my end. I saw the internet warning. So,
One of us is
um,
frozen, yes.
yeah. So here's question number two. Now, I'm going to give a free shout out to kansasmonks.org. This is a pin from a local Benedictine abbey, kansasmonks.org. And one of the priests must have blessed this pin or something because I found that this pin has magical or miraculous properties. Again, it can strike laws from the books, it can edit laws that are on the books or add new laws. If I were to loan you this miraculous pin, Marty, and you could make one change, and this could be a change with, sweeping national ramifications, or this could be just that stupid law that makes you fill out forms and triplicate 8 times a week, or it could be getting rid of traffic tickets. What law would you change and why?
I think that being a former litigator, um, I would want an addition to every case before you were able to file a lawsuit, that there was a requirement that the two parties, or however many parties there are required to sit down, and they're required to sit down and make a list of what they hope to accomplish by this litigation, what they hope to save, and what they think it's going to cost to find their solution, so that they are really thinking about the actual cost of litigation versus their emotions. Because no matter whether you are a single business or you are a multinational corporation, there is far too little time uh, uh, analyzing how much litigation is going to cost. And I know that this will not help the Lawyers Relief Fund, but it is the number one thing that people should look at. And is the solution really litigation, or is it sitting down and making both of you unhappy? And it's a little different than mediation. It's really that you're focusing the parties to force them to be in a room to look at what the costs are. That'd be my thought.
I mean, that's a good suggestion. I have to assume that's at least rooted somewhat in your aforementioned experience with your former business partner, now friend. Would that have solved your problem, or at least curtailed the issue?
I think if yes, we really needed a parent there. And I think many times you need a parent in the level head to say, really, is this worth it? Because it's not just about dollars, it's about time, it's animosity, it's, the breakdown and what it looks like to the world outside. There's so many considerations, and especially now with what I did yesterday is known by everybody in the world tomorrow.
Hmm.
It is just amazing what the ramifications are of a dispute. So I recently bought a piece of art, and by the time I got from the gallery to where I was going to dinner, I had four people ask me, wow, I heard you bought this art and you were at such and such a gallery. How did you decide on that? And the check hadn't cleared yet. And so it's crazy. But so all of those things happen.
Gotcha. Well, Marty, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me and share your insights. I really appreciate it, and I think you've got a wonderful view of the world, and you clearly know what you're doing. You're very sharp at what you do, and you've got a great looking website, as we already discussed earlier. I do like to let my guests have final word. Is there any last word of wisdom or parting thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I appreciate this opportunity, Justin. This is great. And what you're doing is wonderful because people need to get to know the lawyer that they're hiring and to kind of see if they are a personality match as well.
Mhm.
Because just like anything else, you may spend a lot of time together and you want to make it pleasant. So thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. You do a
My
great job.
pleasure.
All
My
right.
pleasure.
Thank you.
I've often said this is a way to humanize the attorney, right? I think for a lot of people, they want to get to know their attorney before they hire the attorney, and it's really hard to do that under normal circumstances. But if you can just have an off the cuff interview with someone and really see what makes them tick, see how they think, I think it goes a long way towards humanizing the attorney. So I really appreciate it. Well, Marty, thank you again very much for talking with me today and my listeners. This has been The Attorney Post. I am, as always, your host, Justin West. I've been talking with attorney Marty Davis of Legal Solutions Group. That's legalsolutionsgrp.com. As always, though this podcast does talk about a whole range of legal issues, this podcast does not constitute legal advice. And if you have a legal issue, you should always seek the advice of a competent attorney in your area who focuses on the matter that you need help with. Obviously, if you're in the Florida area and you need a lawyer with a lot of years of business acumen and experience in multiple facets of business law, I think Marty and his law firm would be a wonderful resource for you. So again, we're going to put his information down below as well. I think he'd be a great resource for you, but always get that information. Lastly, again, this podcast only works because you guys like it, review it, share it, etc. So if you're watching on YouTube, we always appreciate a like, subscribe, and a share. Leave a comment down below if you learned something new, or if there's something I should have asked Marty and I didn't. Always let me know and give me that feedback. If you're on any other podcast repositories, again, a rating, a like, or subscribe, a share, whatever makes sense on that platform is great. But the number one thing you can do to help this podcast grow and to make the world a better place, in all honesty, is just share this podcast with someone that could use this information. So in this case, if you know someone that runs a business in Florida and they're running into an issue right now, share this podcast. Even if they don't work with Marty, they hopefully get some insights that will help them in whatever situation they're in. Because again, as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Until next time, I'm Justin West. Thanks for listening, and bye-bye.